last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. The Casey Anthony fad continues around the country, with a Texas court appointed special advocates using the verdict in an attempt to recruit more CASA puppets. Several states are pushing for Kaylee's Law, where parents who don't report their kids missing after 24 hours will be guilty of a felony. Crazy Oklahoma woman slams into the side of a car with her minivan, trying to kill the driver because she looked like Casey Anthony. Jerry Springer doesn't think that she's going to make $1 million off of her possible book and movie deals. And Casey walks out of jail at 12:14 a.m. on Sunday morning. In Colorado this week, a group home loses its license over claims that the facility poses a substantial danger to public health and welfare. Delaware foster kids who go through multiple placements are being targeted for identity theft. In California, a Los Angeles social worker is speaking out about the county's practice of warehousing foster kids in office waiting rooms. And the state is hoping that the new higher reimbursement rates that were recently ordered by a judge will boost foster parent recruitments. In Illinois, the state severs ties with Catholic Charities for refusing to sell your kids to gays. Then Catholic Charities cries to a judge, and the judge grants a preliminary injunction allowing them to keep their contract until the case can be heard in court. In Georgia, new legislation aims to protect the child custody rights of parents who served overseas in the military. A Massachusetts pediatrician who suggested placing obese kids in foster care is setting off a media firestorm. Connecticut claims to be placing more children with family members these days. In New York, they're expecting an adoption boom after the legalization of gay marriage. And you are more likely to be ratted out to the child abuse hotline by your kid's school teachers than by any other group of callers in Missouri. Rhode Island makes a new law making teenage sexting illegal. The U.S. is investigating claims that child deaths caused by abuse or neglect are underreported. And a new iPad app is designed to teach toddlers about homosexuality. In Ireland this week, new mandatory reporting laws are implemented, and anybody who doesn't report child abuse will go to jail. Even the sacrament of confession won't be exempt from the new rules. And even the social workers are up in arms over this new law, claiming that mandatory reporting will push overstretched services towards a breaking point. In Romania, kids who live in group homes are found to have developmental language delays. And the U.S. and Russia have reached a deal allowing the Russians to monitor Americans who adopt Russian orphans for signs of child abuse. In Australia this week, a whistleblower is causing a stir in the Northern Territories over claims that the Department of Children and Families ignored her written child abuse reports, then harassed her for complaining about it. And her husband fears that the government is on a witch hunt to get rid of her. The New South Wales opposition claims that the state government is planning to cut funding set aside for foster care reforms. And the high number of kids in foster care these days risks a modern equivalent of a stolen generation. In Canada, the British Columbia watchdog is claiming that officials failed to report serious injuries suffered by foster kids. A preliminary inquiry begins in the death of a 20-month-old foster child in Alberta, and critics are saying that such probes are too secretive to matter. In England, students who make false accusations against teachers will now be criminally prosecuted. In a desperate attempt to add legitimacy to the profession, the UK is going to appoint a chief social worker. And a group home in Nottinghamshire is being investigated over abuse claims that happened between 1975 and 2000. In entertainment news this week, Brooke Mueller is photographed with a makeshift crack pipe, and she still gets to keep the kids because Charlie agreed to no more drug tests. And Sarah Ferguson can't get her children's book published about a tree that survived the 9/11 attacks because they fear that Americans might find it offensive. In Florida this week, a real mother gets busted for filing a false report after telling police that her children were missing when they were in a foster home in Kansas. In Indiana, prosecutors drop a case against a foster mother accused of seducing her 15-year-old foster son. A Kentucky man is busted after trying to have sex with his foster son. In Maryland, 2 young men are suing a foster care agency after being raped by their foster father. Then a third comes forward and joins in, filing a multi-million-dollar lawsuit of his own. In Louisiana, a foster father is charged with murdering his 3-year-old foster kid who died from blunt force trauma to the head. A 16-year-old foster kid from New York is charged with murdering his foster father. Another teen from New Jersey is arrested for killing his former foster father. 2 New Jersey foster parents are indicted in the death of a 14-year-old foster kid in their care. And a California woman who is going through a divorce gets mad and cuts off her husband's penis in the bedroom with a kitchen knife and then throws it into a garbage disposal. In Kentucky, a couple of grandparents are suckered into placing their autistic grandson into a specialized foster home, but the state lied, screwed them, and now they're fighting to get him back. Police in Florida are on the hunt for a real mother who snatched her kids back from a foster home. A grandparent from Massachusetts loses custody of a kid who lived with her for 4 years after the state terminates the parental rights of the mother and decides to put the kid up for adoption. And in New Hampshire, a father commits suicide by setting himself on fire on the steps of the family court building, and the media ignores the whole thing. In Las Vegas, a desperate to adopt foster mother is upset after they remove a kid from her care, putting the girl into a pre-adoptive home because this woman couldn't provide the necessary paperwork. In Oklahoma, a child protective worker quits over an internal investigation regarding a kid who died while under his watch, and then he commits suicide. A California mother legally adopts her biological child who was kidnapped 40 years ago. The students of Chicago public schools hold a demonstration against the school's zero-tolerance policies. And finally, tonight, a father from Maryland sues his ex-wife over false accusation of sexual abuse and wins $825,000 after he lost his job and months of quality time with his 2 young daughters. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.